hi everyone, and welcome to VLGA Connect. On the program today, I'm in conversation with Keiran Brophy, who's Assistant Director at Play Australia, and we're going to find out about the 1,000 Play Streets concept and what that means for local government, not just in Victoria, but around the country. Keiran, welcome to the program.
Thanks very much for having me, Chris. Great to be here.
No, good to have you with us. Perhaps my first question should be, what's Play Australia?
Yeah, good question. Good question. So we're the national peak advocacy body for play in Australia. So we not only service a lot of professional members, so those that develop and look after play spaces across the board, and of course being playgrounds and working with a lot of local governments across the board. But we also run a heap of advocacy work, and we drive campaigns to campaign to get more children outside playing every day, because we know outside play is a good thing. And part of my role as assistant director is to deliver on 1,000 play streets, which we'll talk about soon.
Are you a membership body? Do you have members?
We are a membership body, Chris. So we've got lots of local government subscribed, and we offer PD and training and resources for local government who look after play spaces, and also for local government who look after people who play in our communities. And so we also have lots of industry members as well, and lots of early years members. So it's a big mixed bag in terms of our membership, Chris. Really, anyone who's interested in play, I'd encourage you to jump on our website and have a look.
Terrific. We'll certainly provide that sort of information in the show notes too, with links and things. So now we want to find out about 1,000 Play Streets. Catchy title. What's it all about?
Yes. So 1,000 Play Streets. This is our big push for Australians to reclaim our quiet residential streets as places for neighbours to connect and play. So we recognise that people aren't getting together as much as we used to, and certainly not playing out in the streets as much as we used to. And there's a real need for these kinds of interventions. So Chris, probably about 11 years ago, an initiative called Playing Out was born in Bristol by a couple of mums in Bristol over in the UK who wanted to temporarily shut their street to get their children out and playing together. And that was the start of a big movement that's gone global. They've scaled their little street play movement in Bristol to 200 streets around Bristol, 10 or 11 years on, and 1,000 streets plus around the UK. And it's been a really strong community-led movement over in the UK. And we're connected in with Playing Out, and we've taken great inspiration from them. And so we've called ours 1,000 Play Streets, and we've given ourselves 5 years, 50% of the time, to top our friends over in Bristol.
So what does that actually look like for the street under this concept? What happens on the ground?
Yeah, so a play street's a really simple concept. It's a temporary street closure whereby neighbours of all ages get out on that street and play in a safe environment that's close to traffic. Although if you live there, we can have traffic marshals that support residents to come through in a safe manner. They normally last for 2 or 3 hours, and really it's community led and driven, and it's about I guess really opening up streets and recognising that not everyone has access to amazing places to play where they live. And we need to support environments for play on a daily basis for children and communities. And so play streets can really play that role.
I guess it's that street party concept that's being applied to kids' play and for kids' benefits. So it's a different lens.
Oh, absolutely. It's about neighbours getting together. And we recognise that there's a lot of apprehension amongst parents and caregivers to send kids out these days. There's a lot of worry and anxiety when it comes to kids playing out in the street because we have such a strong car culture. We run at the side of a car, and we're fearful of cars and accidents and so on and so forth. But we also don't know our neighbours as well. And what we recognise and what we found through our pilots and through our testing, which I'll talk about later, is that the more we can get to know our neighbours, the less anxiety we have, because we actually know that, hey, I know Bob down the road, and now I know if the kids are out playing, Bob's going to keep an eye on them as well. So it's about connecting neighbours to build that social capital so we all help each other.
And people are more focused locally because of COVID, aren't they? Now they're more attuned to what's in a shorter distance span, particularly through lockdown type restrictions. So, do you see this as an idea whose time has come as we move beyond COVID?
It's COVID has certainly built the relevance of our movement and the relevance of this conversation we're having, because our communities are more localised. We live, work, and play around where we live, particularly if you're restricted in and around Melbourne, as we are. And so what we found is that these communities, including myself, I've been letting my kids out on the street more and more and playing with the neighbours' kids more and more, because I guess our circles of independent roaming, it's very much around where we live. And just, sorry, Chris, I'm sort of jumping around a bit. I get quite excited on this topic. Independent roaming ranges for kids is a really interesting one. And independent roaming of kids is so important for the healthy development of kids, for them to experience the world around them, experience their neighbourhoods. And we know roaming ranges are shrinking, and it's lucky if these days kids can walk to the end of their street and back. And this is really about trying to re-establish those roaming ranges and get kids moving around their neighbourhood on the street in the first instance.
That's really fascinating. It's not a concept I've really spent any time thinking about. So I'm putting the devil's advocate hat on here. I'm thinking about what the risk management people in councils are going to be saying or thinking about this. How are you going to break down those sorts of barriers that I can imagine would be getting put up?
It's a really good question you ask, Chris, because we know when it comes to temporary street closures, we're asking local governments and communities to work through a lot of red tape around organising insurance, organising traffic control and traffic management. And what we found is that it's in the context of our local governments, all people are different. All people's view on compliance is completely different. We found that we've had the best impact whereby we found local governments with really, collaborative internal systems where we've seen cross-departmental work across children, across the families, communities, areas, across sport and rec, and across roads, and also the people who look after litigation and law within council across legal services. And so, I mean, if you've got a traffic engineer who's quite progressive and really values people-centred policy over compliance and covering one's butt, then we see better outcomes for community at the end of the day. So we're all about working with those local governments who really want to value community and really want to question local policies and what's a bad policy, and if it's a bad policy, let's dig into it and let's fix it up. And we also recognise that there's also state legislation that has an impact on local systems for local government, and potentially there's opportunities to advocate for improved legislation as well.
Yeah, all good points you make, and I imagine you're trying to roll this out nationally. It's going to be a bit different from state to state, I suspect, as well, in the way the idea is embraced and adopted.
Absolutely. So we recognise that there are different blockers within different states. So with our pilot, we actually piloted in WA under Sport Australia, the Move It Oz campaign. We piloted in WA with a couple of local governments there. With Moreland and Darebin in Victoria. We were grateful for their participation in the pilot, and we learned a heap. And we also piloted with Sunshine Coast up in Queensland for our national pilot. We learned a heap about the different state legislative environments, and it was interesting that the Sunshine Coast example. We found that before applying for a permit, local residents needed to obtain a permit through the Queensland Police. And by doing so, we actually learned that it took approximately 40 hours for them to go through the motions. Wow. and get that police permit. And that is really prohibitive and it's crippling. And we know we need to make it easier for local community members. Otherwise, they're just not going to get involved, Chris. I think it's compliance gone mad, really.
That's a staggering number, that 40 hours per instance.
Per instance. And then if you're rained out, it's all for nix and you've got to do it again.
So what can you do about that, though? How do you break that down?
I guess there's no silver bullet approach. we're having a really productive conversation with the South Australian government, and we're working with an initiative called Game On. And we've got about 8 local governments in SA involved in play streets over there, and we're looking at targeting state legislation that is really prohibitive. And one of the things we're targeting at the moment is the need to advertise temporary street closures in local papers, recognising that people consume media in different ways these days, either via website or their social media. And so currently, as it stands, you have to advertise in the local paper, and it costs you $400 to do so. And then there's a question over whether will any of the local community members read it in the first place. So we're actually pushing for a change to that legislation at the moment, and we're grateful for Game On's involvement at the state government level to support us to do that. And we'd love to explore those kinds of conversations in Victoria, where we have a group that we work collaboratively with to explore what are those advocacy levers we need to get around and pull.
Yeah, I'm surprised that some of those legislative requirements are still in place around the country, because it is a very outdated concept, isn't it, these days, with the way people consume information. Keiran, you mentioned, I think you said 8 in South Australia. You've had a Queensland experience. You piloted in Western Australia, and you've mentioned Victoria. Are you, before we get to the Victorian experience, are you in every state yet?
Not yet, Chris. We're hoping so. Look, it's a relatively new movement, and we've only been through our pilot process, and we've just launched in September this year. Right. We also recognise that COVID's thrown our worlds upside down. And look, we really view 1,000 Play Streets as a fantastic initiative to support COVID recovery, and the relevance is only going to grow next year. So we're really keen to see every state and territory on board over the course of next year and beyond.
So who have you got on board in Victoria so far?
So Darebin City Council and Moreland City Council have been fantastic partners in terms of supporting the pilot, and we're really keen to explore opportunities with them, but of course explore opportunities with other local governments across Vic.
And what sort of resources are available to not just those councils, but to people who want to know more about the concept?
Yeah. No, thanks, Chris. We've put a lot of effort into our website. So we've got 1,000 Play Streets. We've got a 1,000 Play Streets landing page on our Play Australia website. And on those 1,000 Play Streets landing pages, you can actually access a toolkit. And that toolkit's full of planning advice for local governments to think about how they can get ready to organise themselves for temporary street closures for play, whether they may need to advocate internally to actually unlock the system and get leadership support and get the dollars and get the people required to make this thing successful. The planning support tools also look at how we engage with our community Play Street hosts and what steps we can take to get them on board and support them ongoing to engage with neighbours and really create welcoming environments, and also how we can capture the stories and really grow the good. And that's all available on the website. We've got signage available as well, and we're available to talk to. We've got plans next year to organise a 1,000 Play Streets network meeting online to build a bit of a national network, so we can build a bit of a community of practice. And really, we've seen through the pilots, the value is connecting local governments together and having conversations about, well, what are these blockers and what are each of us doing to overcome the blockers?
Any opportunity to do that is clearly worthwhile. So if we've got people from councils, not just in Victoria, but Australia-wide, listening to this now, how is it best for them to get in touch to find out more?
Jump on the website, playaustralia.org.au, and everything's there under our campaigns. You'll see 1,000 Play Streets, and you can also get in touch with me. And Chris, we can share my contact details. I'll be very happy for anyone to reach out to me, and we can talk about Play Streets in the local context, recognising that local governments have crowded agendas, and some local governments really care about, I'd say all local governments care about community well-being, but also some are maybe more focused on resilience or safer roads or children and communities. And Play Streets has diverse application.
I think it's a great concept, and really appreciate your time to explain that to us today. And I hope you're inundated with inquiries as a result of the conversation we've had. Thanks, Keiran.
Magic. Thank you, Chris. All the best.
That's Keiran Brophy from Play Australia telling us all about 1000 Play Streets here on VLGA Connect.